Indigenous women are often said to be the heart of their communities. Their position was the strength, the support, and therefore the identity, without which the community would not function. This energy is essential to the health and vibrancy of a community, or a family. I began this project seeking to find myself within my family's old Indigenous roots, connecting myself to the source that I came from. But blood memory and family knowledge is not only held at the source. Every single person who has been created along the way and has contributed to family knowledge holds it, and this is where this project began to take shape. I come from a family of very strong women. Beautiful, multi-talented women who hold our family together and give it color and substance. These women are my teachers. They have taught me to be strong but gentle, careful but adventurous, nurturing but strict, creative and practical. My mother and her sisters have taught me the art of personal balance. This is what being a woman means to me. Holding everything in balance so everyone is taken care of, including yourself. I believe we have created this balance from the characteristics given to us from our ancestors, the people who came before. I feel this because of my grandmother, Kathy. She died tragically in a car accident when my mother was very young, and so I have never met her, and I did not feel a connection until I saw this picture. When I saw her as a young woman for the first time, I felt as if I was looking at myself, and suddenly it was like a line of electricity flared up, lighting the way into my past, showing me where I came from. That's when I realized the power of blood memory. My grandmother's family was Irish, and to this day, my mother teases me for what she calls my fiery Irish temper. I have always felt a connection to that place, something overwhelmingly powerful that I have never understood, not until now. When my mother spoke of my grandmother and the woman who came before her, I remember thinking they sounded like warriors, powerful, passionate, sharp-tongued women who laughed loud and worked hard. These were fearless women who didn't let anything by them. I was raised on images of these women, fed by the pride in my mother's voice. I know this is where my fire comes from. I remember as a child moments when it felt as if my blood was singing with the need to connect to something from this culture that I had never experienced. When I would try to explain such a complex idea, my mother would smile and say calmly, "You know, your grandmother was Irish. You come from a line of fiery Irish women, so of course you feel that way. It's in your bones, honey." One day when I was 10 years old, I was literally pulled out my front door and down the street by a force inside me that yearned to smell, touch, and taste something, anything Celtic. An Irish song had come on the radio and filled my bones with such powerful energy that my heart felt transported to another place, and so my feet felt that they needed to make up the distance. I now know that my fiery temper, my passion, and my stubborn-headedness come from the descendants of Celtic tribes whose women were warriors and fought side by side their husbands to protect their families. Whether she means to be or not, my mother will always be one of these women, and so will I. The other side of my family comes from a much different place, with a much different people. The northern indigenous people of Scandinavia, or the Sami people. They made their home in the European Arctic as reindeer herders, a nomadic lifestyle that has brought them a rich history and culture. It is said that the derogatory term Laplander was given to them by the non-indigenous population of Finland, who named the territory Lapland, meaning unused piece of material, referring, of course, to the huge, rugged expanse of tundra that no one else could find a way to live on. As a child, I was bullied at school for looking what they called Asian, because my face was pale and round, and my eyes were almond-shaped and narrow. It is the same face shape that is shared by my mother and my aunts, which came from my grandfather and his father before him. It comes from the man, my great-great-grandfather, who brought our family from northern Scandinavia, or Samiland, to the United States. His grandson fell in love with the daughter of an Irish immigrant, and that is how my immediate family was born. I did not know this story until I was much older and had found ways to use makeup to make my eyes look bigger and blush to make my face seem less round, effectively disguising what I did not know then was simply the physical manifestation of my cultural heritage. When I first saw pictures of the Sami people, I felt like my feet had been planted on the ground for the first time. Looking at those pictures, I saw people who looked like me. I could see that I came from somewhere, and suddenly my face had a history and a home. Now when I look at the women in my family and see our faces, the faces of women who have come from an indigenous people across the ocean, I feel proud, no longer ashamed, because I know where we come from, and I know our story. Because my great-grandfather was subjected to horrible racism and discrimination based on his culture, I have no stories of that part of my heritage, for they have been repressed and lost. However, I see evidence of it in my grandfather's character and the resulting influence on his daughters and me. My grandfather was a solid, strict, hard-working man who applied himself completely to whatever task or career he was engaged in, and refused to give up on anything. This kind of solid strength has developed the characters of my mother, my aunts, and myself. I find it impossible to give up on what I believe in, and I have seen this in my family as well. We throw ourselves so wholeheartedly into things there is no turning back. To say the women I come from are tenacious is an understatement. I can only imagine this kind of characteristic is the residue of a centuries-old lifestyle that demanded a solid grounded force of will to navigate. Herding reindeer through a limitless expanse of tundra is not something for the faint of heart. This is the data that has helped me locate myself within my background. Using historical accounts, pictures, and the stories that have survived in my mother, I have been able to transform what I previously thought of as random characteristics into the map of my Indigenous identity. The qualities and characteristics within myself, my mother, and my aunts are now simply the evidence. Finding the roots and evidence of my own Indigenous identity is but the first step of my journey. The next part is allowing those lessons to inform and shape the way I conduct myself on this earth. I believe that indigeneity refers to an awareness of where you have come from and your responsibilities to your family, to the earth, and to whatever it is your people worship. I have found this identity through my family. After seeking it for so long, I found that it was right here at arm's reach this whole time. I may never have seen my indigenous homelands, and yet I still feel a connection, as if the grasses from these places have stained my genes. This feeling of belonging cannot be traced or quantified in any scientific way, but it's there. I know because I feel it.